Hey, what's going on? We are going live here, impromptu training video. I've been wanting to do this training for a while now, for probably about a month actually. And I was trying to figure out the best way to go about it. But here's the thing: I talked to so many contractors on a regular basis that are struggling in their business, and they don't see the end in sight. And so what ends up happening is they just end up quitting and they become a statistic. And I've said this hundreds of times, but according to the Labor Bureau of Statistics, it's not my statistic, it's the Labor Bureau statistic, 96% of contractors will fail in the first 10 years. A good majority of those are in the first 5 years. So I want to share this with you. I learned about this. I've seen it before in the past. I learned it. It was explained to me in a much better understanding recently this past month, and I want to share this with you because I think it will bring an enormous amount of light, very illuminating for you to understand how we go through these different cycles in our business. So let me share my screen here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Some of you may have seen this before. It's called the Kubler-Ross change cycle or change curve. It's been changed for a couple different things, but this basically applies to any and all businesses, any and all projects, any and all jobs, anything that we do where we're taking on a new venture. Okay. And so when we start a business, when we start our contracting business, we're starting right here at the top. We have uninformed optimism. We are excited about this new venture. Like we're gonna do it, man. I'm pulling the trigger. We're gonna start this thing. I'm excited. And we go out there and we start our business and we start getting some leads, and then and we eventually burn through all of our family and friends, and then it starts to kind of maybe slow down a little bit, and then we get into winter, and then it slows down a little bit more. And during this whole time of starting our business, we're in this uninformed optimism stage. And this is critical because if we knew when we started our business everything that's over here, like if we knew all of the information that it was going to take to get to this level of success and fulfillment at the very beginning, we would never start our own business because there's so much stuff that has to be learned and gone through and information gained that it would just be absolutely overwhelming to us when we started. And so that's where the uninformed optimism is. This can't be that bad. I know lots of people. My guy down the street, my neighbor, he's not very intelligent and he has a successful business. If he can do it, surely I can. And this is the exact same thing that I said when I started my business. I was working for a friend of mine. I was his lead carpenter, and like he was kind of lazy, to be honest, wasn't motivated to work, and we weren't working that many hours. And I said, surely if this guy can have a business, I know I could do more than he does. I know I could be better than him. And so I started my own business, right? And so we have this uninformed optimism. We're super excited about starting this new venture. But as time goes on, and if you look here at the bottom, this is time, and this is over here is the emotional stage. As time goes on, that optimism starts to creep out. It starts to get to where, man, this is a little bit harder than what I thought it was going to be. There's a lot more information that needs to be done. And so you start this process down the line, okay? Now if you notice right here, this is the line of optimism and pessimism. So once we cross this line, we're no longer optimistic about what we're doing. Now we become informed pessimism. This is where we get to, once we go below this line here and we start heading down, this is where we start to have the limiting beliefs creep into our mind and really, really, really start to hurt us. This is where we say things like, I can't charge more. I can't charge more because people just won't pay more. They're complaining about the pricing now. or, things like I'll never, if I could actually, oops, hold on. I'll never find help, right? These are things that start to happen as we become informed in our pessimism. And keep in mind, this is time, right? As we're going down this line here, this is time. This can be months, it can be days, it can be years. Okay? So we're going through this and we get into this informed pessimism of like, man, this is really hard. I don't know if this is going to work. And we get to the bottom and we get to the valley of despair. And this is a very, very critical turning point in our business. Let me just clean this up a little bit here. So we get to the valley of despair, okay? And this is where most of us stay for the majority of our business, the valley of despair. This is the very lowest part. This is where we're like working 70, 80 hours a week. We're barely making 40, 50, $60,000 a year. Our spouse is complaining because we're never home because we're working all the time. You can't find good guys. They're quitting on you. Customers are complaining. Your prices are too expensive. And we get stuck at the valley of despair. And this is the ultimate point of our business right here where most of us quit because we look at where we're at and we're jaded by all of these thoughts that we've had and experiences that we've had. And we're like, you know what? It's not worth it. I can go work for so and so down the street and make $50,000, $60,000 a year, income, and go home at the end of the day at 5 p.m. and turn it off and not have to worry about customers texting me after hours and getting emails that, they're not happy with stuff, and calls from the material supplier that the stuff's going to be another 3-week delay. And now what are you going to do for the next 3 weeks? And all of these things that we run into owning a business as we become informed and we become pessimistic about the outlook of where we're at. So we just quit. Right here is where we quit. And then maybe a year goes by, 2 years go by, and we're not happy because we had to go back to a job and we kind of forget some of this stuff, right? And so this is where maybe 2 years later we start a new business because now we're going to do it right. Now we've figured it out and we're going to do it right. And so you start the process, but you can't shortcut this. It's impossible to remove this process through anything that you do. Now you can shorten the time frame, right? So maybe your process is like this because you've shortened the time frame, or if you learn some things during that process, then you can make it so it's not as deep, or in other words, as much time in the the pessimism part of it doesn't go as deep, if you will. But you cannot shortcut this process. If you start this, and this can happen actually in your projects. When you start a project for a customer, like say a bathroom remodel, in the very beginning, there's uninformed optimism. Hey, we're going to knock this bathroom out, man. I have a good feeling about this. Everything's going to go right. And then 3 days in, you open the wall up and there's termite damage, and you're like, crap. And that pessimism starts creeping in. So even on projects, you're going to go through these stages. But this is what I want to really talk about right here, which is the valley of despair. If you notice, the next stage from the valley of despair is informed optimism. Information. It's informed optimism. You start to gain some knowledge about, okay, this is actually possible. You start to gain knowledge of there is a way out. I know other people that are doing the exact same job that I am, that are doing the exact same business model I am, and they're successful. So if they're successful, why can't I be successful? What's the missing link? And this is where you can start to change your mindset of like, okay, I know it's possible. That's the optimistic part of it. I just need to get more information. Okay. And so you can do things like listen to podcasts, and you can join Facebook groups, and you can watch TikTok videos and watch YouTube videos, and you can do all of these things and read books, and you're going to get information when you do that. The problem is sometimes that information is very micro, right? Think about this whole let me clean this up again. Think about this whole time frame. Remember, this is on the scale of time. If it takes you from right here, gosh dang it, I did it again. From right here to right here, this time frame, this could be 3 years. We don't know. It could be 3 months, right? It's a period of time. But that period of time is where you have to gain the knowledge in order to get to enough information and enough optimism to cross over this line right here. And once you can cross over this line, it's still an uphill battle, but it's optimistic because you can see at the end, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can see how you can get to success and fulfillment because you've crossed over that line of optimism, the pessimism, optimism line. You've crossed it. But can you sustain that time period, right? Can you sustain that time period long enough? In other words, can you gain the information while you're learning new information? Can you sustain through the pessimism in the valley of despair long enough to get to the other side? And this is also where people end up quitting because they see, okay, there is a way that I can get there, but damn, it's going to take me 2 to 3 years of more grinding before I can even get there. Right. And this is where you can shortcut this process. This is where from here to here doesn't have to be 3 years. It could literally be 3 months. But this is the part where I get on calls with contractors and they go, "Yeah, man, I need help in my business. This is what I'm doing." And I say, "Perfect. I have the blueprint for you. I can tell you how to get from here to here. I have the information you need. We can shorten this. We can condense it down into 3 months or 6 months, sometimes even a month, where we can make major changes in your business and you can get that information, which is going to help you become optimistic." And that's where they say, "I'm going to keep trying on my own. I know what you're saying. I'm going to keep trying on my own. I'm going to keep trying it." And so they just continue dragging this valley of despair out for months and months and years. Maybe they try to make an effort, and then eventually it never passed the line of optimism, and so they burn out. The valley of despair is where you burn out because you can't see anything beyond that. You can't see the informed optimism line. All you see is an uphill battle of information that you need to try and learn, and you don't know how to do that. This is where our pride and our ego keeps us from getting the correct information that we need to be able to change this. And I like Albert Einstein's quote. He has a quote that says, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." You have to understand that the way you got here was you trying to figure stuff out on your own. You put yourself into the valley of despair and you kept yourself in the valley of despair because you're choosing to try and solve it on your own using the same logic and the same beliefs that got you there in the first place. And it's not going to happen. And so this is the part where I'm talking to contractors and I know for a fact that I can help them in their business and they choose not to bet on themselves. They choose to make excuses about why they can't do that. And they stay here. And it's heartbreaking a lot of times because I know when they say, "Well, I need to save up some money. I'm going to sell a few more jobs and I'm going to get that money and I'll join your program in 2 months." Excuse me. And I know when they tell me that, I'll never see them again because they're not going to make more money in the business because it's their thinking that got them there in the first place. You can't magically just produce more money in your business if you don't know how to do that, if you don't change your actual beliefs that you have. And so from here to here is really about changing your beliefs. It's about changing your mindset. Yes, it's gaining information, but you have limiting beliefs that are keeping you from seeing where you can get to. And so let me ask you this. If you got to spend a week with 20 people who were multimillionaires, just follow them around, ask them all the questions you want, do you think that you would be better off of to a chance of becoming a millionaire after spending a week with 20 millionaires, or do you think you would be worse off? I think most of you would say you would probably have a better chance of becoming a millionaire if you hung out with millionaires, right? Well, that's the same with other people in your community. If you have a community that you can plug into with other people who are hanging out up here, they've made it past the informed optimism stage and on their way to success and fulfillment, or they may even be there. If you have the opportunity to hang out with those people and ask them questions of how they've gotten there, do you think you would have a much better success of getting from there to there? Wish I could draw arrows. Or do you think you would have a worse chance of getting there? And most of you, I think, are smart enough to know that if you had the opportunity to hang out with these people, you know you would have a better chance of getting there. And that is exactly what the community is inside the Profit Club. It is a community of people who have made it past this line of informed optimism, and they're willing to share that information with you. So, coupled with the community and the blueprint of how to actually get there, you really can't lose. But here's the thing, you have to bet on yourself. And for some of us, when we get to this part right here, the valley of despair, we don't want to go past that. Our ego won't let us do that because we have some, unfiltered childhood trauma, some parents, I want to prove my dad wrong. He said I'd never amount to anything. My teacher said I would always be a failure, and I'm going to prove them wrong that I can do this on my own. And this is the part down here at the bottom where we give up because our pride keeps us from simply asking for help, for simply getting information that we need to turn this valley and start heading up into informed optimism. It's our pride, it's our ego, it's all of this head trash that we have because that's what's keeping us from getting there. Luke says it made me angry when you first said that, so I know it was right. Yeah, Luke. And guys, for me, just so you know, like I was here. It took me to get from here to here, took me about, I don't know, 3 to 4 years to get there. Okay. And then from here in the valley, I stayed in this valley and I stayed from about here to here. It took me another 4 to 5 years in the valley. The only reason I survived, and this is the truth, the only reason that I survived was because one, when my wife and I got married, we based our income off her and our living off her income. So all our expenses, all of our house, all of that stuff was taken care of. Anything I made in the business was just extra money. That's one reason. And two, because I'm freaking stubborn as hell, but I'm also very dedicated, right? I'm persistent. I have grit. And so when you have pride and ignorance and grit and you combine them into one person, that was me, you stay in the valley of despair for a very long time. Luckily, after about 9 years of being a knucklehead, I started getting help and I got coaching. And within 3 years, I was up here. To get from here to here, it took me 3 years basically of implementing changes. And that was again because I wasn't fully committed. I was dipping my toes in and kind of tasting things. I wasn't fully committed. And so I just wanted to go over this because this chart really helps to see how we have to go through things and where we get stuck. Like this right here, this section right here is where most of us die. We die right here because of pride and ego. And we use excuses like, I can't afford to get coaching. I can't, I don't know how to, hire people. I need to hire 27 people in order for me to make money. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't. You just need to charge more money. Well, I can't charge more, Brad, because everybody on my customers say it's not possible. It's not going to happen. I'm already the most expensive contractor in my town. Blah, 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 blah. Those are all of those pessimistic mindset beliefs that we have to get rid of. And honestly, the very first module in my blueprint is removing limiting beliefs, because that's like 90% of the battle. When guys come into my program and they hang out in the community of winners and they see that everybody else in that community is making 45, 50, 65% gross profit on all of their jobs, they're charging for consultations, no longer doing free estimates. When you get into that community and you see like, oh, this is the normal operating tempo here, is that everybody makes money and everybody charges and everybody weeds out tire kickers, then I really can't lose. Like there's really no option for me to lose unless I just refuse to make the change, unless I just refuse to invest in myself. That's really the only way you're going to lose. And so that's really all I wanted to talk about, is understanding that when you go to the valley of despair, if you don't make changes, you will fail. It requires change, and people hate change for whatever reason. I don't know why. The only thing that is constant is that change will always be happening. That's the only constant, is that change always happens. So the faster you fall in love with changing, the faster you can get out of that valley of despair. And if you really, really, really want to shortcut the process, then invest in yourself, which is an investment. That's why it's called an investment. By the way, if you don't know that an investment returns a result, an expense costs you money. When you say, I can't afford to join your program, that's because you're seeing it as an expense. It's an investment. And when you can invest money and get a 10x ROI return, that is an investment. That is a solid plan. Most of you guys have no problem throwing $50,000 into an investment fund, and then you end up losing $10,000 because the investment fund dips during a recession. You have no problem gambling with your money in the stock market, but you won't invest in yourself on something that's proven to work with a 10x ROI guarantee, because you simply say, oh, that's too much money. And that it's heartbreaking. It really is. Like I get upset whenever I talk to contractors and I know I can help them in their business. I know 100% I can help them, and they refuse to invest in themselves. So I just wanted to share this with you guys. I hope this helps. I hope that you understand that when you're in the valley of despair, you're not going to get yourself out of there. And I don't care if you invest in my program or where you get the information from, but you're not going to get yourself out of there. It's going to take information that you currently don't have to get out of there. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and hopefully this was helpful. And if you want any information on how we can help you in the Profit Club with my Profit Blueprint, just reach out to me. Be more than happy to share what that looks like, what the investment is, and how we can help you get out of the valley of despair before it's too late. So thank you. I appreciate you all.